page 110. Good morning.
Good morning.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
And Hag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
A few announcements as we get started. This year, Operation Isaiah is in full effect. We're collecting food and coats. Our thanks to our Social Justice Committee for making this happen. For those joining us online, you can download the Rosh HaShanah Machzor prayer book on the High Holiday section of Temple Emanu-El's website. For everybody's safety here, take a moment and look around, identify an exit sign. You've got a couple behind you, here, behind me here, in case we need to leave quickly for any reason. I'd also like to ask everyone to turn off your cell phones, still your Apple Watches. Don't get a call in the middle of the service. That would be poor form, and then I have to answer it. If you do need to check your phone during the service, I'd ask that you go outside of the sanctuary to do it, and that way you don't distract the people around you. Second day Rosh Hashanah services will take place tomorrow here at 10 a.m. This Saturday, October 1st, join us at the JCC Lake at 4 p.m. for a family-friendly Tashlich service. And this Sunday at 9 a.m., we'll have our memorial cemetery service at Temple Emanu-El section of Arlington Cemetery. Now, the vision is that Temple Emanu-El is a place where you can experience Jewish pride and Jewish connections. The faith and active engagement of our membership allows Temple Emanu-El to be a blessing for good in the world and into every life of people who are here today. It's worth pausing to take a moment to express our gratitude towards our co-presidents, Edie Disner and Bill Kellert, to our board of directors, and to the many, many volunteers who make Temple Emanu-El the amazing place that it is. Your efforts allow the sacred light of this place to shine. Our choir is led by Melissa Fontaine. Thank you to our beautiful choir for raising up our prayers. And on the piano is Eric Jenkins. Our appreciation goes out to Stephen Blick and his crew, who continue to work tirelessly behind the scenes. With me on the bima is cantorial soloist Jessica Tillum, Rabbi Rachel Kleinmiller, Rabbi Max Miller. I am Rabbi Spike Anderson, and I think you'll agree it is really good to be here together. Yeah. Whether you're with us in the sanctuary or joining from your home, let's take a moment or two or three. Turn to the people around you. Hi, my name is Shana Tova. Happy New Year. Good to see you. I haven't seen you since breakfast in 3 years. Thank
Repeat after me. Tekiah.
Tekiah. Nasim B'chol Yom, our daily miracles, can be found on page 124 through 128.
We'll join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasech vivina, lachin ben yom uvein layla.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivri.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asuri.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kefufi.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokach haaretz al hamayim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asani li kol tzorki.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechi mitzadei gaver.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumi.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hanoten liya'ef kol.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir sheina me'enai utnuma me'afapai.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tselem Elohim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani ben chorim.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael bigvura.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, oter Yisrael betifara.
Amen.
We rise for our Baruch Hu, page 142.
Life's treasure house. Each of us is a repository of life where life is stored. And this eternal light rests inside each of us, waiting for us to manifest it with our actions. When we act justly, we bring this light into the world, answering God's dictum, lights from darkness. When we help another, we bring the "it was so" into the present, an ongoing creation of light in darkness. We pray these words of light on this beautiful day, Yotzer Or, pages 142 and 144 in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer Or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, Or olam beotzar chaim, orot me'ofel amar vayhi. Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha berachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh bechol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam bechokma asita, mal'a ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yifa'arucha selah. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, v'nizkeh chulanu mehera le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer hame'orot. Our praise to you, Adonai, creator of the cosmic lights. Page 150, Shema.
Be seated. Ve'ahavta, pages 152 and 153.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים אלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Lechem Emet.
Page 160. True and steadfast is this teaching together, beloved and treasured, a source of wonder, a fount of goodness,
a thing of beauty,
and ours for all time. And true it is, the eternal God is our sovereign, the rock of Jacob, our protecting shield. Through all generations, God's name lives on. God's throne stands firm. God's dominion prevails. God's grandeur and faithfulness endure through eternity. God's words are precious. They live forever. Milcha, page 164.
Page 169. Imagine a beautiful mountain spring, pure and clear, full of freshness and power. It descends from the highest peaks, flowing down to the water, the floor of the valley. So it is with the souls of those who came before us. The beauty of their lives still flows down to their descendants, renewing our will, restoring our faith, giving us the power to act as they did, inspiring us to reach higher and to grow in strength, in courage, and in generosity together. And so we are taught. Each of us is obligated to say, when will my deeds reach the level of the deeds of my ancestors? Let us cherish what we've learned from beloved family, friends, and teachers. Their memory comes to us as an inheritance, an ever-flowing stream of goodness and blessing.
Let us drink deep and remember.
We rise pages 168 and 170 for the Amidah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka
Baruch Shemo.
Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah.
Amen.
Ata Gibor Le'odam Adonai Mechayei HaKol Ata Rav Lehoshia. Lechayot HaKol Baruch Ata Adonai
Baruch Shemo.
Mechayei HaKol.
Amen.
And as the ark doors are closed, please be seated, page 173.
The words that you'll find on the top of 173 are written by Rabbi Aaron Pankin, Zikron the Bracha. He wrote these words probably 2 years before he died in a private plane aviation crash. He was my thesis advisor. He was the provost of Hebrew Union College, which is where all of your rabbis went to seminary. He was a very good friend. And so I look at these words that now are shared beyond the grave, as it were, as a message from him to us that I take very personally. And my hope is that we all look at these as what they are, words of loving kindness for somebody who was a really tremendous person. Rabbi Pankin said, "Our actions help us live in such a way that when we suffer life's darkest depredations, we will always have ways of coping with them. Our actions may not change the ultimate outcome one iota, but they alter our attitude, bolster our ability to withstand challenges, help us handle unavoidable misfortunes better, and see life's values amid chaos and dismay." Page 174.
Page 176. And so a great shofar will cry, Tekiah. A still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, "Behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes, even they are not blameless."
All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before the shepherd. As a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds. You decide destiny. You inscribe judgments. Page 178. On Rosh HaShanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. Together, how many will pass away from this world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast?
Who by famine and who by drought? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humbled and who exalted? But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree. Rise for Kiddushah, pages 184 and 185.
Le Dorvador, Le Dorvador, Le Dorvador, Nagi Galacha. Le Dorvador, Le Dorvador, Le Dorvador, Nagi Galacha. Le Dorvador, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גם לך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גם לך. כי המלך גדול, גדול וקדוש, גדול וקדוש אתה. כי המלך גדול, גדול וקדוש, גדול וקדוש אתה.
Page 191, please be seated. God, who is able to live for you and enjoy your holy presence, she who lives uprightly, works for justice and speaks the truth, she who does not revile others or do evil to a friend or harass her neighbor, she who keeps company with others who love and revere God, but avoids intimacy with those who ignore or forsake her, she who keeps her promises and lives with integrity, she who lends money generously without expecting interest and will not condemn the innocent, she who lives this way will never be shaken.
Baruch atah Adonai, HaMelech HaKadosh.
Amen. Excuse me a second. At least that didn't happen at the park. That would have really been a problem. Good morning. Over the past few months, I've asked many people one important question. What is your greatest concern? What is your greatest concern? Most people will voice a few options as if trying them on for size. Climate change, poverty, politics. But then shake their heads no, because although they have many concerns about the world, usually their greatest concern is much more personal. What do you think most teenagers say is their greatest concern? Real question. Say it again? Battery life. Okay, that's the da-dump. Serious question. I'm looking for serious answers. What do you think teenagers say that their biggest concern is? Yes? Getting into college. Getting along with their parents. Huh? Bullying. Well, almost always their answer is mental health. At first, this was surprising to me, but it makes sense. These past few years have made our society a very confusing place. The pandemic forced our kids into remote learning and canceled years of their enrichment activity. At a time of their lives when they were supposed to be developing social skills, they were isolated, and it's still taking its toll. Our young people have skyrocketing rates of anxiety and depression. And so no wonder that their greatest concern is their mental health. All right, how about adults 50 years old and older? What do you think that their greatest concern is? 50 and older. Health, retirement, cheap seats in the back. Almost always it's having their health and living a long life. Is that important to you? Me too. And guess what? That's what the high holidays are all about. If we were to pick a mantra or a tagline for the high holidays, it probably would be the words from Yom Kippur's Torah reading. Choose life. Each year we read the words, Re'eh natati lifanecha hayom, et ha'chaim ve'et ha'tov, ve'et ha'mavet ve'et ha'ra, uvecharta b'chaim. See, I've placed before you today the life and the good, or the death and the evil. So choose life and be a blessing. Over the centuries, our sages have concluded that rather than see this choice as God handing out reward and punishment, it's actually a matter of logic and consequence. To choose life means to connect with compassion to the people around you, and to be a blessing means to actively seek to make a difference in their lives. It stands to reason if we do this, then we'll positively influence our home, our friendships, our community, and the world. But the part that we often miss is that being a blessing for others directly helps you too. Our sacred text conveys that increased altruism leads to healthier and longer lives. Modern science backs this claim up, not as a hope or a prayer, but as a fact of neurobiology. Scientific studies conclude that compassionate acts of giving back, done over a sustained period of time, will drastically improve your mental health, your physical health, and your length of years. The first example of what it means to be a blessing is Abraham and Sarah. They were living in the land of Haran, which our tradition tells us was all about the self, what today we would call an extreme me culture. The parallels to modern American society can't be ignored. Remember the cover of Time magazine that named the person of the year with a mirror reflecting you as the center of the universe? This issue was highlighting our obsession with social media and posting selfies as a culture of narcissism. Like parts of our culture today, everything in Haran was about me, not we. And so the people of Haran lived a life disconnected from one another, chasing after instant gratification in hopes it would bring them happiness. It never did. God calls out to Abraham and Sarah, Lech lecha, lechi lach. Take yourself forward into the world and care for the people who you encounter. Look for opportunities to connect with them and be a force of good. Seek to improve the world one personal interaction at a time. Then, v'hiyeh bracha, you shall be a blessing. God's command to Abraham and Sarah comes with a profound realization that life must be more than just existing for the sake of ourselves. There's this great scene described in Torah where Abraham's sitting in his tent, recovering from circumcision, and talking with God. It's a hot desert day, the air dusty and bone dry. In the distance, he spots travelers wearily putting one foot in front of the other. With chutzpah that is nothing short of admirable, Abraham breaks off his conversation with God, ignores his physical discomfort, and leaves the shade of his tent to bring the weary travelers into the shelter of his own home. There he proceeds to wash their feet as Sarah brings them food and water. These men weren't family. They weren't even neighbors. They were strangers in need of help. By helping them, Torah says, Sarah and Abraham were themselves blessed. The message is powerful. Serving others with compassion is good medicine for you. Now, I love when Judaism and current scientific research intersect. It lights me up. Moses Maimonides, who's considered the greatest Jewish mind of the last 1,000 years, was both a famous rabbi and a prominent physician. He believed that both Judaism and science were essentially two sides to the same coin. They both seek to find the truth. And so I want to tell you a story about two contemporary doctors, Anthony Mazzarelli, who is the chief medical officer of a big hospital, and Steve Traceyk, an ICU doctor, who often meets people on the worst day of their lives. Both doctors have been taught that in order to succeed, they couldn't get emotionally attached to their patients. This conventional wisdom is familiar to us outside of healthcare. It says that if we care too much, then we're left exposed and vulnerable. It's more clinically efficient to be impersonal and objective and removed. Doctors everywhere were taught that creating impenetrable boundaries and not caring would ultimately help the most people and protect them as individuals. But Anthony and Steve's personal experiences during the COVID pandemic caused them to question this, and ultimately, through their research, to reach a very different conclusion that has profound implications for everyone here today. We all remember during the first year of COVID, hospitals were on the verge of being overrun. Too many people needed help at once. It was a very scary time. Hospitals, like all systems, are made up of real people, and healthcare workers were running on fumes. Many doctors and nurses began having intense feelings of numbness and emotional exhaustion, known as burnout. It's described as a dark feeling of depersonalization that's so bad that no matter how hard you try, you feel that you can't make a difference. Of course, burnout's not limited to hospitals. Many of us feel burnout because the world seems so precarious and life demands so much from us. In an effort to get everything done, we triage connection and put up the fences against compassion so that we don't feel exposed. There was one particular evening after a really tough day where Steve had lost a 19-year-old patient. Driving home that night, he felt numb. He felt empty and said to himself, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Steve could barely admit it to himself, but some part of him feared that he was heading down a dark road. Quitting wasn't a serious consideration as he has 4 kids and a mortgage, but something had to change. He had to treat his burnout. The best research on how to relieve burnout symptoms essentially said to escape, to get far away from the hospital and his patients, and spend more time working on himself with yoga or hikes or vacations. In other words, if Steve spent less time caring for his patients in order for more me time, his burnout would evaporate and good cheer would miraculously replace it. The answer to burnout couldn't be to run away. As the head of his department, how was that a sustainable strategy for him? He concluded that he'd have to fundamentally change how he approached his work and his patients in order to reverse his sense of hopelessness. Steve suspected, based on anecdotal experience, as counterintuitive as it might sound, that caring more, not less, for his patients might be the answer. And as a researcher, he was genuinely curious. Could the effects of compassion be measured scientifically? No one had ever compiled all the research on this subject in one place before. In all, they reviewed more than 1,000 scientific papers and over 280 research studies. The findings have been nothing short of astounding, in part because they fly in the face of the mores of modern American society. But their findings fit very well with the Jewish wisdom thousands of years old: to choose life and to be a blessing. Study after study showed that when the caregivers in the hospital invested even a little more time, it's okay. Study after study showed that when the caregivers in the hospital invested even a little more time in each patient as a person, their patients did significantly better than those who were treated with the standard clinical fashion. It could be as simple as asking, "How are you?" and then really listening. It was the same doctors and nurses, the same operations, the same medicines, the same machines, but with very different results. When doctors and nurses cared more, their patients healed at a higher and faster rate. Operations were more successful, and even medicines and machines were more effective. What's even more interesting is that when the caregivers intentionally offered compassion, their own mental and physical health was drastically improved. Steve began conducting himself differently at work. He adopted a mindset of not closing himself off from his patient's human experience and was able to protect himself from burnout by making deeper connections. It turns out that serving others with compassion is good medicine for you. But would this idea apply and be measurable outside of the hospital system with regular people like you and me? Study after study proved that the answer was a resounding yes, with results that are profoundly relevant to everyone here today. For instance, if I told you that if you volunteer your time on a regular basis, you are more likely to live longer. Would you pay attention? Would you consider trying it? Well, if you're 55 years old and over, and you regularly volunteer at least a little of your time, you will likely have a 24% lower mortality rate than your peers who don't volunteer at all. And if you're a dedicated volunteer, meaning you give a lot of your time to help others, then you likely will have a 44% lower mortality rate than your peers who don't volunteer at all. Those are big numbers. The scientific evidence shows that volunteering might be as good for your body and your brain as exercise and diet. It's more than just a nice thing to do. It could save your life. You see, when you give back, your brain receives a flood of neurotransmitters that trigger good feelings. Some of you might know it as helper's high, kind of like runner's high, with the similar endorphins. These actively reduce stress and systematic inflammation, both of which weaken your immune system and can cause heart attacks, diabetes, cancer, and a myriad of other things that you don't want. In other words, serving others with compassion will help you live healthier and longer. And what about our kids? I worry about them. As a group, they are really vulnerable right now. We see it all around us, in our homes, and our schools, and our synagogue. Many of them need support and attention. Last year, the CDC reported that 63% of young adults struggle with anxiety and depression. 25% of them have had serious thoughts of hurting themselves or worse. Therapy and medication are essential, for sure, but there's ample evidence that the practice of serving others is the key component toward returning them to a place where they can thrive. Study after study found that in a short amount of time, when teenagers were able to give back on a regular basis, those endorphins kicked in and their mood lifted. In most cases, this was enough to significantly reduce their anxiety and depression. In other words, giving their time and sharing their compassion gave the teens the boost that they were missing. It was the little extra something that got them back to baseline so they could feel better and once more begin to live their best lives. I know. Some of you are thinking, gosh, are you really going to add another thing to my busy life? The answer is yes, but not as one more thing to do on your to-do list. Choosing life isn't a task to be checked off. It's really a way of being. It starts in the home and extends outward from there to build healthy, connected communities. This is a way for us to reprioritize our approach to time altogether. So, come join us on Sundays at Garden Isaiah, growing food that will nourish our neighbors. Help us feed children and women and families through our work with Zabin, Mary Hall, and CAC. There are kids in local schools who need a kind soul to help them learn to read. Come with us and be that person. There are families from Ukraine and Afghanistan who need to be welcomed, and environmental work that needs you to champion. We have rivers to clean and interfaith relationships to foster. There's anti-Semitism to combat and inter-race bridges to build. Lech lecha, lechi lach. Take yourself forward and be a blessing. God reveals to us that we are each given a choice. Either we treat each other with compassion and feel connected, giving us a chance to live our best lives, or the opposite. To our detriment and to those around us, we can choose to live in self-absorbed, protected silos, which ultimately keep us isolated and disconnected. Our choice is important. I'm here to tell you that serving others with compassion is not just good for society, it's good medicine for you. May the choice that we make allow us to be written into the book of life in this new year. May you and your family be blessed, and may you be a blessing. Shana Tova. We rise for the great Aleinu, page 212. (202).
Page 205, please be seated. Rabbono Shel Olam, power of all, have compassion on the souls of Israel. Open their hearts to do teshuvah before you. Open their souls for the sake of returning to you.
Dwell on each sound of the shofar. Contemplate its meaning. Tekiah, one whole note. Shvarim Trua, 3 broken notes, 9 staccato notes. Tekiah, 1 whole note.
My return to the right path has the power to make me whole again. Tekiah, once I was whole. Shvarim Trua, in the wear and tear of living, I became broken and shattered. Tekiah, my tshuva has the power to make me whole again. Page 206, we rise for the shofar blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Please repeat after me. Tekiah,
Tekiah,
Shivarim Teruah.
Shvarim Truah.
Tekiah.
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 Shivarim.
Shvarim.
Tekiah.
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 Teruah.
Teruah.
Tekiah.
Tekiah. Please be seated. V'al kulam, page 212. We rise for Avinu Malkeinu, page 223.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu.
Together, Avinu Malkeinu, Almighty and merciful, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu chamol aleinu va'al olalenu v'tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families.
Avinu Malkeinu kalei dever v'cherev v'ra'av me'alenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu kalei kol tsar umastin me'alenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer chaim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu chadesh aleinu shana tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness. Avinu Malkeinu, almighty and merciful, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Please be seated. I'd like to invite up Co-President Bill Kellert to share some words.
Shana Tova and Good Yontif. My name's Bill Kellert, and I'm honored to be your co-president along with Edie Disner. I've been a member here for nearly 30 years and have served on the board for more than half that time. I've had the privilege of working with several different boards and presidents, and I'm truly humbled to be even mentioned as part of that group of incredible women and men who have served you before through the good times and the challenges of our history. It is my great fortune to be representing you at this moment in time. There are so many positive things that have taken place and are taking place that the future of Temple Emanu-El looks brighter than ever before. Why is that? Well, I'm glad you asked. Just listen to some of the things that you and your fellow members have helped to do this past year. With the wonderful weather we typically enjoy and the COVID restrictions, we've added and made significant use of our new Schiffer outdoor chapel and the Goldstein family patio. The parking lot has been repaved, and lighting has been improved, and along the steps from the parking lot, we've replaced the rotted railroad ties with a solid wall and are in the process of installing new handrails. You may have also noticed that the entire building has just received a fresh coat of paint. And we're evaluating adding a covered entrance and functional space right in front of the building. But it's not just the building. The overall engagement of you, our members, has increased tremendously. This includes brotherhood, sisterhood, and Next Door, our group of young singles and couples spearheaded by the Rabbis Miller. The Social Justice Committee has created a multitude of opportunities for you to help out. As we just heard, whether it's with the Community Action Center, Mary Hall Freedom House, Backpack Buddies, Garden Isaiah, or so many more. We've created an initiative to combat anti-Semitism with over 50 congregants divided into different task groups. Many of, if not most of you, are familiar with their wildly successful program, Why the Jews? We just completed the most successful Dick Wilson golf tournament, which provides needed educational scholarships to our students. And speaking of students, one of the most important tasks of a synagogue is the education of our youngest members. Enrollment in our Diamond Family Religious School is the highest it's been in recent memory. Could that be because we've recently been able to offer a highly subsidized trip to Israel for our active students through the Schiffer Israel Scholarship Program? And speaking of Israel, let's not forget the fantastic temple trip to Israel this summer, where we had both a family and adult itinerary option enjoyed by 80 congregants, all led by our 3 rabbis. And I'd be remiss to leave out the wonderfully successful Spring Forward fundraising event, where you all donated a significant amount of money to the Temple Endowment Fund. It was so well received that we've already begun planning our next one for the spring of 23. Indeed, the growth of the Endowment Fund is one of our successes, as well as the promotion of our Life and Legacy program. Both of these are in place to help secure the future of the congregation. And even during COVID, we've increased our membership, a tribute to the commitment of our clergy, professional staff, and volunteers. This actually is amazing since it's contrary to the prevailing situation across the rest of the country. And along with increased membership, as a former treasurer, I'm happy to also tell you that our financial situation is strong, thanks principally to managing expenses and the dues and donations from you. Adding members is not the only thing we've added. We also added the newest member to our Bima, Jessica Tillum, our cantorial soloist who's brought a fresh, new, uplifting voice to our worship. And now perhaps the best news of all. With the review and consent of your financial council and board of trustees, based on the phenomenal job they've done and the support they have within our community, I'm happy to announce that we have newly signed 5-year contracts with both Rabbi Rachel Miller and Rabbi Max Miller. And it gets even better. We would not be in the position we are without our senior rabbi. Therefore, again with the support of the Financial Council and your Board of Trustees, we are so very pleased to announce that we now have a new signed contract with our Rabbi Spike Anderson, a long-term contract in which he will guide our congregation through his retirement. The board was unanimous in its approval, and we, as you, could not be more excited for our future. These contracts are contingent upon the approval of the congregation, and we plan to hold a special congregational meeting in the near future where you can vote to approve these measures. Actually, that was the serious part. Now, even with all these wonderful events, challenges undoubtedly will arise for us to deal with. But your board will be keeping an eye on our situation and will be ready to act on your behalf to maintain our positive and forward momentum. We, of course, will continue to count on you and all of you for your support, whether it be with your time or your dollars. But for now, let us pat ourselves on the back and enjoy the many good things that we are thankful for as we enter this new year together. Shana Tova.
We rise for our Torah service, page 228.
The binding of Isaac, Akedat Yitzchak, is among the most challenging to read, our portion for today, Rosh HaShanah. Not because the melody or the Hebrew is difficult to read or remember. The challenge comes with squaring what God asks Abraham to do, to sacrifice his only child. Even if we read this story as allegory, it's a dark tale. A reasonable person might wonder, why then would we read such a thing on Rosh Hashanah, a happy and forward-looking holiday? We read it for this reason. Abraham was a flawed person. Yes, Abraham welcomed strangers, took care of family, and was devoted to God. But it was Abraham's faith in God that blinded him from seeing the inhumanity behind such a commandment. We read the binding of Isaac to remind ourselves that we are flawed beings as well. We commit sins and injustices too, and we pray on Rosh Hashanah that, like Abraham, God will save us from our darkest selves so that we may begin the new year fresh. We begin reading for our Torah for Genesis 22, verses 4 through 8, and I'd like to invite up Alexa Friedman, our reader, and for the Aliyah, Lisa, Steve, and Julia Friedman. Ya'amdu Shlomo v'Gila Sarah v'Batya le'Aliyah Rishona. Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bahar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. Bayom Hashlishi, Vayisa Avraham et Enav, Vayera et Hamakom Me'rahok, Vayomer Avraham Ana Arav, Shavu lachem po im chachamor, Ve'ani v'hana'ar nilcha ad ko, V'nishtachaveh v'nashua alechem, Vayikach Avraham et Eitzei ha'olah, Vayasem al Yitzchak beno, Vayikach be'ado et ha'esh ve'et ha'ma'achelet, Vayachlu shnehem yachdav. Vayomer Yitzchak al Avraham aviv, Vayomer avi, Vayomer hineni beni, Vayomer hani ha'es v'ha'etzim, V'ha'aseh le'olah. Vayomer Avraham Elohim yireh lo haseh le'olah. V'nishlachnu shleihem yachdav. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam nata b'tohenu, baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Right over here. For the second Aliyah, I'd like to invite up our readers, Kitty Lubin and Lexi Pearson, and to join them. Ya'amdu, Tzipor, Elisheva, Bat Yoel, V'Penina, Eliyahu, Menachem, Bet Yitzchak, V'Rachel, Yaron, Harben, Eliyahu, V'Tzipora, Lexine, Magdala, Bat Eliyahu, V'Tzipora, Chasia, Bronzi, Vat Yoel, V'Penina, Michael, Ben David, V'Sara, Asher Tova, Ben Michael, V'Chasia, Bronzi, Katina, Chana, Bat Michael, V'Chasi, Bronzi, U'Penina, Le'Aliyah Shniya.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch
Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'charbanu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayavo el hamakom. Asher amar lo ha-Elohim. Vayiven sham Avraham et hamizbeach. Vaya'aro et ha'itzim. Vayikod et Yitzhak benoch. Vayasem oto al hamizbeach. Mi'mal laitzim. Vayishlot Avraham et yado. Vayikach et hama'achelet lishhot et benoch. Vayikra ela malach Adonai min hashamayim. Vayomer Avraham, Avraham. Vayomer hineni. Vayomer el tishla yadha el hanar ve'el ta'aslo me'uma ki ata yadati ki ari Elohim ata ve'lo hasachta et binha et yahidha mimeni. Vayisach Avraham et enav. Vayare v'hine ayil ahar. Nehas basva bekarnav. Vayele Avraham. Vayika et ha'ayil. Vaya'alehu le'olam tachat beno.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher natan lanu Torah emet. V'hayei olam nata b'tohenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
For the third Aliyah, I'd like to invite up our readers, Ari and Jolie Levy, and their parents, Stacy and Eric Levy. Ya'amdu, Sarabat Moshe v'Yehuda, Eliezer ben Moshe v'Linda, le'Aliyah ha'shlishit. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Amvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayikra Avraham Shema Makom Hahu Adonai Yireh Asher Ye'amer Hayom Bechar Adonai Yireh Vayikra Malach Adonai El Avraham Shenei Min Hashamayim Vayomer Binishvati Na'um Adonai Ki Ya'an Asher Asita Et hadavar hazeh velo hasachta et bincha yehidcha.
Ki varehech avarehecha veharba arba et zaraha kekochavei hashamayim vekaho asher al tzvatayam ve'arash zahar et shahaor oivav ve'itbarhu ve'zarach kol goya haaretz ekev asher shamata be'koli.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chaye olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
With the sacred Torah in our midst, we have the chance to ask God for healing of body, of mind, and of soul. So we ask that you hold those names in your heart. We turn to page 245. If it's okay with a neighbor, wrap an arm around one another as we please rise. Standing for Hagba and Galila, the lifting and raising of the Torah, we turn to page 246.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. ילה לי 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 לי
Please be seated. I invite you to stay on this fold to page 247. Is it the day of the missing sheets? I've got like a little sheet. It says some nice things on it. No, that's okay. So our Torah portion, our Haftorah portion today, it comes from the first book of Samuel. We'll be chanting near the end, chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, with a special focus in these particular verses on Hannah's prayer. And many of us know what it's like to have prayers go unanswered, and also, God willing, what it is like to have those prayers answered. And this is about that moment, about a prayer answered, about strength gained through that comfort and that support. The blessing before can be on 247, then the reading begins at the very bottom of 252.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'nvi'ei ha'emet v'hatzedek. ותתפלל חנה ותאמר עלת ליבי באדוני רמה קרני באדוני רחב פי על אויבי כי שמחתי בישועתך אין קדוש כאדוני כי אין בלתך ואין צור כאלוהינו Al tarbu tedaberu, givoha, givoha, yetze atak mipichem, ki el deot Adonai, velo nitkenu alilot.
Our blessing for after, page 259.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol haolamim tzadik bechol hadorot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer ve'oseh ha'medaber u'mekayem shekol devarav ve'mitvat tzedek al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al ha'nevi'im ve'al yom hazikaron hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu lechavot ultifaret Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, umvarchim otach, yitbarach shimcha befi kol chai, tamid leolam vaed, udevarcha emet v'kayam le'ad, baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Shemo,
melech hakol haaretz, mikadesh Yisrael ve'yom hazikaron. Amen.
We rise as we return our Torah to the Ark, page 277.
We're going to remain standing for Elenu, page 286, 288.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atei kedula liyoser reshit, shelo asanu kiguyei haratzot, velo zamanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo samchem keinu kahem, velo aleinu kechol ha'onam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech ha'melachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Page 291, we find the words, "There are stars up above. So far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. So it is with people who we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember." As we get ready for Mourner's Kaddish, I ask that if you are in the Shloshim period of mourning, first 30 days after a loved one's passing, I ask that you rise now so that we can recognize you. Please remain standing. If you're in the first year of mourning a loved one's passing, we ask that you rise now so we can recognize you. If you are commemorating the yard site, the death anniversary of a loved one's passing at this time of year, this season of year, I ask that you stand now so we can recognize you. And if it is your custom to rise either in solidarity or for the 6 million who have no one to say Kaddish for them, please do so now. Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 292. Yit Gadal, V'yit Gadash, Shmei Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich machutei b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael b'galav v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulamei amaya yit barach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitala shmei dekucha brichu La'ela u'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tush b'charta v'nechamata, damiram b'yoma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. O say shalom b'imru mav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. remain standing for our final shofar blast, page 301. Please get ready to repeat the call after me. Dramatic pause. Tekiah Gedolah.
Tekiah Gedolah.
Woo! May you be inscribed and sealed for a good year. L'Shana Tova.
Shana